Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Harry, and today I'm going to be talking about empathy or lack of empathy when recovering from a chronic illness. So for the last four and a half years or so, I've had long COVID, as many of you will know, and it's obviously had its challenges. I went from being a very active individual. I was always on the go, always loving doing stuff, loving training, loving being out there, and my life very much got disrupted and turned upside down. And I know a lot of you will obviously be in a very similar boat, and you will very likely have experienced a degree of suffering that you generally didn't know was possible before. I've experienced broken bones. I've had, some mental health difficulties previously. I've had various kind of trials and tribulations, but nothing comes even remotely close to the experience that I've had with this. And I know obviously a lot of you will be in a very similar position. And I actually consider myself relatively lucky as well, because I haven't actually had the total bed bound like I know a lot of people with severe ME have for extended periods of time. So it's been very disruptive, and I know a lot of you will feel the exact same thing. And what I wanted to talk about today is how that over time affected my sense of empathy, both towards other people and even closer people, right? Because I think and like to think of myself as quite an empathetic person. I've always cared about other people, potentially too much at points, bit of a people pleaser, which again, interestingly enough, I think is something that seems quite common with people with long COVID and these kind of conditions. But that's another conversation. But I wanted to talk about how that kind of affected my empathy, because obviously when you undergo something as severely debilitating and something where the suffering that you reach is so low, and you reach levels that you never could have imagined, your concept of what normal suffering is then gets kind of recalibrated. And I think where I was so frustrated about the position that I was in, I couldn't train anymore. I had this horrible, just horrendous foggy head, this weird sensation where I just felt like trapped in a bubble almost. I couldn't do any normal things. And I remember just being desperate. I was like, oh, if only this was just a normal illness, right? If only I'd broken bones before, I've had glandular fever, all these kind of things. I was like, please, if only I could just have that. And for a period of time, it built up a lot of resentment. So I would see people who were able to do things. They were able to run, they were able to exercise, just operate a normal life, just enjoy coffee without feeling like you're gonna pass out and then have to go to bed. And it built up a lot of resentment, and my ability to empathize was really affected by that as well. So people, I would hear them complain about something. I would hear them say, oh, like my life's, this is really not going my favor at the moment. And to be honest, I think I became a bit of a dick. Like I didn't express it. I didn't usually express it. Like I wasn't openly condescending towards people, but I remember thinking, but you can train and you can feel bad and you can just go for a run, right? And you'll feel better after, right? You can just work your way through it. You can just do all these things. And, I remember people saying, oh, I'm feeling really tired at the moment. I'm like, what do you mean tired? Like, what are you talking about? Like, as in, if you walk, you will not get malaise and feel flu-like and hungover. What do you mean tired? Like, I know it just was like, I couldn't comprehend it. They're like, oh yeah, I really don't fancy working out. I'm like, what do you mean you don't fancy working out? You're not going to feel concussed and flu-like afterwards. Why the fuck are you not working out? So anyway, I generated this kind of lack of empathy, right? And I think I'm not ashamed to admit it, because I definitely built up a bit of resentment, and maybe this resonates with you as well. But even just like general trials and tribulations of everyday life, and even people who are close to me, they would come to me with these kind of issues, whatever, the struggles of everyday life, right? And I would in my mind, I would be very unempathetic towards it. I'm like, why, like, how can this make you sad? Like, you have your health, you can go and run. Why is this making you sad? And I really think this resentment and this lack of empathy built up, and I think it really contributed to making me a worse person, because nobody, it's very subjective, right? This kind of, if you're trying to get into this kind of suffer off, this my suffering is worse than yours, it's also just damaging to yourself when you can't demonstrate or show empathy as well. So I just wanted to be transparent and share that, because I think it's quite an important thing to express, and we're so aware of the struggles that we have with conditions like this, and we know how painful they are, and we're pushing to raise awareness and saying, you know, how difficult it is. But I think what I want to point out is that other people still have problems, and getting into a kind of suffer off, what I'm experiencing is worse than what you're experiencing, is just a race to the bottom and a kind of futile game to play. There will always be someone who is in a supposed like worse position than you, right? Maybe they live in an area where they can't get to healthcare. Maybe they are in a war-torn country. Maybe whatever it is. And I think once you get into these kind of games of like, in your mind, lacking any empathy because you don't see their suffering or whatever they're feeling as valid, it's very damaging, not just to people around you, but to yourself as well. Yeah, I think my takeaway from all of this and a realization as I've gone through all of this as well, is that you can be very aware of like the difficulties, but that shouldn't be an indication for you to just lack any empathy towards other people, and for you to kind of shit on other people's problems because of the kind of suffering that you know to exist. You know, I've reached levels that I didn't even know were possible. Even compared to like the beginning of long COVID, I had like some really weird neuro symptoms in recent months that I just didn't know was possible, like a level of suffering I just didn't know existed. But none of that kind of should compromise the fact that nobody else has any right to speak about any sort of ailments that they're dealing with. So yeah, I just thought it was something that I would share, because it's definitely been a big realization for me. And I think whilst it's made me very like resilient to levels of pain, it then made me a bit intolerant as well towards other people. Just very like, come on, like get yourself together. What have you done that? So I think going forward, I've got better at finding a better balance between those two things. But I'd also, like I said, I want to be honest as well and share that I still have difficulties with finding that common ground and that understanding when people are talking about their tribulations. And it's not something that just goes like that. But yeah, I think life is not a suffer off. There is no kind of objective measure as to who is doing worse, who is suffering more. And I think it's a very dangerous road to head down. So I guess the takeaway is to be tolerant, be understanding, and yeah, realize that all suffering has its kind of merits. And whilst we don't want to just be crying at any little thing that happens to us, I think when you build up a kind of resilience to suffering, it can be very easy to become a little bit callous, as I did. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that, and hopefully that relates, and you guys can get some benefit from that as well.